I don't know, is my mic on? Yeah. So, is my mic on? My mic on? Okay. Trigger that.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us for today's December 15th SBCAG board meeting. For the record, my name is Goss Williams, and I'm chair of the SBCAG board. Madam Clerk, please facilitate roll call.
Thank you, Chair Williams. For the roll call, Director Capps, Hartman,
Here.
Nelson,
Here.
Lavanino,
Here.
Infante, Julian,
Here.
King. Is he there? Osborne,
Here.
Patino,
Here.
Perotti,
Here.
Clark,
Here.
Rouse,
Here.
and Chair Williams. No,
Here.
I'm just gonna go
And for the record, I am here, Director King. I had it on mute, sorry.
Yeah, we saw you. Thank you so much. I'm just going to go over a couple of Zoom reminders. For all the panelists, please remember to mute your mic when you're not speaking. If you would like to comment, please use the raise your hand button. If you're an attendee, you will be in listen-only mode. All attendees will remain in listen-only mode unless unmuted by SBCAG staff to provide public comment. Comments from the public are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. The public will not be able to share their video or screen. When public comment is called on for an agenda item, attendees may use the raise your hand button to express desire to provide public comment for the item, and you'll be unmuted when it's your turn. Those calling on the phone can dial *9 and to raise your hand. Thank you, and those conclude my Zoom readings. Also, a quick reminder on our website, it shows the December 15th agenda and the November 17th agenda. Please make sure everyone's on the correct agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 2 is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America,
to the republic
which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 3 is public comment. Is there any public comment for any item that is not on the agenda today?
Chair Williams, we have one speaker in Santa Barbara, Mr. Scott Wentz.
Mr. Wentz?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Scott Wentz representing Kaiser Basic. The topic of my comment is this organization ethical and lawful in its operation? And the reason I ask this question is because the city of Santa Barbara was just awarded a $54 million active transportation grant. Part of that grant had to do with the bicycle master plan. Here's the problem you have. You have people up there in Santa Maria. You have an individual down here that was on the city council at the time that it was passed in 2016. It was passed as an advisory document to avoid the necessary EIR, and the statement at the time by the council and by the city attorney was that if and ever it became a public works document, then it would have to have its EIR. Well, we've been waiting and waiting. We've been watching the city of Santa Barbara edge up onto this, and a couple months ago, they passed a public works document that included the west side, the east side, the upper east side, and the mesa. That included the bicycle master plan. By their actions, they have now converted the advisory document into a plan that, according to CEQA, now has to have its EIR. Not only that, but you have a problem because and Mayor Rouse is here before me, and it's a little uncomfortable, but we presented a letter to the city of Santa Barbara in public comment before they voted on this item, stating that it has been improperly agendized, therefore you cannot vote on it because it doesn't include everything that you were voting on. They went ahead and voted on it in anyway. Okay? So now you have a document that they voted on that never should have been voted, but includes the bicycle master plan, which is now a document and project under CEQA that demands an EIR. Where's the EIR? Well, the city of Santa Barbara isn't going to do it. This organization then went ahead and granted $54 million for this project. Active transportation. We want these bike paths. Okay, fine. Where's the EIR? Has your staff done the necessary requirement asking the city of Santa Barbara for its EIR? Now remember, I have brought this before this organization multiple times over multiple years, and there's never been an answer to this. You also have a problem in the city of Goleta. The city of Goleta had a massive Brown Act violation. 90% of its council showed up at a meeting, did arm twisting to get its narrowing of the Old Town Hollister. When we asked them for specific documents, their staff said, we will provide it for you. Their staff never provided it for us. The city of Goleta has stated specifically the roundabouts that are part of this narrowing program in Old Town Goleta will in fact be a violation of the ADA because there's no ADA capacity to get through those roundabouts. So is this organization operating?
Mr. Wentz?
Yes.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you, sir.
Item 4 is the approval of the consent calendar. I will not be able, I will have to recuse myself on 4G. Is there any other items that the committee wishes to pull? Any items that the public has asked to pull for comment? Then can I get a motion on the consent calendar, the balance of the consent calendar, not 4G?
Chair Williams, was the COVID item on here as well? I'm sorry. Yeah, can we pull that as well and have a roll call vote?
Yes.
Item B, 4B.
4B. Can I get a motion on or discussion on item 4B? No one wants to make a motion. I will move 4B.
I'll second 4B. Lavanino.
Roll call. Any discussion on 4B? Roll call, please.
Director Capps? Aye. Hartman?
Aye.
Nelson?
No.
Lavanino?
Aye.
Infante? You there? Director Infante, you're muted. Did I? Okay. Julian?
Aye.
King?
Aye.
Osborne?
Aye.
Patino?
Aye.
Perotti?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
Rouse?
Aye.
And Chair Williams.
Aye.
Motion passes 12-1.
Can I get a motion on the consent calendar, the balance of the consent calendar, not 4G? I have a motion
Second.
and a second. Roll call, please.
Director Capps? Aye. Hartman?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Lavanino?
Aye.
Infante?
Microphone's not working.
Okay.
I can send him a message asking him to re-sign in.
Let's go. Julian?
Aye.
King? King?
Aye.
Thank you. Osborne?
Aye.
Patino?
Aye.
Perotti?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
Rouse?
Aye.
And Chair Williams.
Aye.
Motion passes 12-0.
For item 4G, you're going to have to do without a chair because both the chair and vice chair are gone. So I'll leave you to your devices.
Director Osborne is the chair.
I am
Director.
here.
Yes.
I can ask for a motion on 4G.
I'll move 4G. Lavanino or second.
Hartman seconds.
The Lavanino moved and Hartman seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Director Capps?
Aye.
Hartman?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Lavanino?
Aye.
Infante? No, he's not working. Julian?
Aye.
Did they say aye? King?
Aye.
Osborne?
Aye.
Patino?
Aye.
Brody,
Aye.
Clark. Director Clark.
Aye.
Thank you. And Rouse.
Aye.
Thanks. Motion passes 12-0.
I yield the floor back to the chair.
Thank you, Madam Future Chair. We will now go to item 5A. Please read that into the record.
5A, Regional Early Action Planning Grants, REAP 2.0, project selection. Approve a suite of projects to be included in SBCAG's full REAP 2.0 application to the Department of Housing and Community Development and approve Resolution 2236, authorizing submittal of the application.
Mr. Becker.
All right, thank you, Chair and Directors. I'm Mike Becker of staff. I'm going to give a presentation. It's the same presentation that I delivered yesterday to both sub-regionals and kind of give the history of the REAP 2.0 program, how we've been undertaking it, and to get you to the point where we are today. And hopefully by the end of the meeting today, we have a suite of projects that we can include in an application to the state to receive funding. Next slide, please. So a little background on REAP 2.0. It resulted from AB 140, which was the budget trailer bill in 2021. It provided $600 million statewide budget surplus funds to 3 programs. There was an MPO program, and that's solely what SBCAG's focuses on. There was a rural and tribal program, which is being run by Housing Community Development, or HCD. And we have informed the tribe of that program. However, we are not involved in any aspect of that program. And then there's also a high impact program. I believe it has $30 million in it, also being facilitated by HCD. And that is statewide competitive. SBCAG is not administering that program. So our focus is entirely on the MPO portion. And of the $600 million that was allocated to REAP 2.0, $510 million was allocated to the MPOs by formula. The formula was based off of the Department of Finance's 2030 population projections for each region, and that resulted in SBCAG being allocated about $5.8 million by formula. And with that, we're using 10% to run the program. Half of that 10%, or 5% of the total, is being used from essentially through calendar year 2022, from when we first got involved with this program up until we submit that full application by December 31st. And then the remaining 5% is to continue running the program to ensure that the projects are being delivered and to ensure that the requirements are being met through the conclusion of the program in 2026. So 5% for 2022, the other 5% split over the next 4 years. And the remaining 90%, or roughly 5.3 million, or more precisely $5,255,471, is to be suballocated through the process that we're going to be talking about today. This program is being run primarily by the Department of Housing and Community Development. However, they have partners in this. There's a Strategic Growth Council and the California Air Resources Board. So when we talk with them, it takes forever to schedule a meeting because they have to arrange everybody. And we get the 3 state agencies. However, our direct contact is with HCD. Next slide, please. REAP 2.0 was, when it first came out, the talk was it's here to help regions implement their sustainable community strategies. Sustainable community strategy is the portion of the regional transportation plan that we prepare every 4 years. And that regional transportation plan contains the sustainable community strategy that identifies how we will achieve the greenhouse gas emissions reductions required of us through Senate Bill 375, which seeks to implement AB 32, the Global Warming Solutions Act. So the sustainable community strategy is how we support the state in reducing greenhouse gas emissions from light duty vehicles consistent with the Global Warming Solution Act. Within this program, there's 3 objectives, and they are to accelerate infill development, to affirmatively further fair housing, which means to ensure that there's supportive services and job opportunities for low-income people to essentially not concentrate poverty. And then the final is to reduce vehicle miles traveled. The eligibility, the projects that are eligible for the program, the list is very broad. There is an intention for the program to be very flexible. However, there were a couple things that were explicitly not eligible. One of those that we heard repeatedly was broadband. And I take it the reason that broadband is not eligible is because there is a lot of broadband money on the table outside of REAP 2.0. And then the other is to meet mandates. And the example that they provided to us on several occasions was the Air Resources Board requires transit agencies to already transition to electric bus fleets. And since that is already a requirement, just purchasing electric buses to meet that mandate is not an eligible use for this program. The intent of the program is to fund projects that are transformative in nature. And that is, does it have a bigger benefit or the potential for a bigger benefit than just the project itself? And at the end of the day, no matter what comes out of today and is included in SBCAG's full application, that's going to get submitted to the state. And those 3 state agencies are going to review it and they're going to say yes or no. If they say no, I'll be back here in probably March and we'll be trying to figure out what they will say yes to. Next slide, please. So whenever I think it was in probably about February, they came out with the draft guidelines. And then in the summer, they came out with the final guidelines. And that enabled us to develop a work plan to carry out this process. And we had to define that work plan in the 10% application. So we said SBCAG is eligible for 10% of these funds. Here's our plan to carry it out to make sure that we get to where we need to be by December 31st and how we'll employ these funds. So the first thing we did is we developed a public outreach plan. There was some pretty specifics in the guidelines regarding public outreach. So we said how we would satisfy that. We would develop a resource guide, which was essentially condensing 50 or 60 pages of dense program guidelines into 5 or 6 pages that are a little bit more digestible to the public and our stakeholders. And then we carried out the outreach process. And then we did a call for projects during the month of October. We're currently in the selection process, which will, my fingers are crossed, it's going to culminate today. And then Daejung and I are going to turn to developing our full application, which we've taken as far as we can. Now we just need the projects to plug into it. I will say that this is not something that we typically see on the horizon for years, and we balance our projects. We had to react to this. It's being dropped on our lap. You have a December 31st deadline, and considering we already had commitments in place, we did not have the staff to carry out the program. So we hired Daejung as our intern to help us. She's been assigned completely to the REAP 2.0 program and has done a terrific job in that. So the team was myself, Daejung, and Lauren Bianchi-Clement. We held 3 public events, and 1 each in the SB 535 designated disadvantaged or underserved communities. We had 2 webinars, and we also widely distributed a survey. So in turn, the result of that was we got 400 survey responses. And I think there was, everything was available in English and Spanish, and we made an effort to try and reach into the Spanish community. And we did get, I think probably about 15% of our survey responses were completed in Spanish. And we tabled at Mexican Independence Day Festival in the city of Guadalupe, which was actually a very successful and very fun event. So a pretty robust outreach process for a grant program. And then on top of that, we also had many, many meetings with our partners up in Sacramento, HCD, the Growth Council, and the Air Resources Board. Next slide, please. So just in a nutshell, through this today and through this process, we have $5.255 million available for sub-allocation. The intention of the program and all the The projects that were submitted for applications do, one way or another, support implementing the region's sustainable community strategy. We have completed a fairly robust outreach process, and that outreach process helped inform the scoring of the weighting, as well as the blend of planning and implementation projects, which I'll get into in a minute. And as I mentioned, whatever comes out of today, we'll include in our full application, and it will get submitted to the state, and they will review it and say yes or no. Next slide, please. So with selecting the projects, there's 4 steps. The first 3 are in SBCAG's, or being facilitated by SBCAG staff. The last one is that state agency review. But first, we arranged a volunteer scoring committee of 5 individuals, which I'll show in 2 slides. They scored the applications we received objectively against a series of standards that were worked out between us and the 3 state agencies. They did not consider geographic equity in their process, in the scoring committee process, and they did not consider whether something was planning or implementation. Both those things are requirements of the program that we have, that we incorporate. So we took the scoring committee's result to the Joint Technical Advisory Committee, which is the planning and public works staffs from throughout the region. And we asked them to, considering the scores, geographic equity, and the blend of planning and implementation, recommend a suite of projects to the board for consideration that kind of meets all these requirements. So we did that. That's included in your staff report. And then today's task by the board is to consider everything that's been done to date, make any changes that the board supports, and approve a suite of projects for us to include in the full application to the state. Next slide, please. On the slide here, unfortunately it's not too clear, is the standards that the applications were scored against. And these were informed by the public process, and also we had to roll our sleeves up with our state agency partners to make sure that we're meeting the requirements of the program. But you could see there's the vast majority of the score was associated with those 3 objectives of the REAP program, 75% in total. And there's a little variation in there between those 3 that you could see under the weight column, and that is in response to the public process, how we incorporated some of the feedback we received. Next slide, please. Here's our scoring committee. We sought to include people who were eligible applicants for the program, but we also wanted to get away from the regular crowd, away from the staffs of the cities and the county, and to find some stakeholders outside that. So we had 3 out of the North County, being Russ Levenway, Deborah Hood, and Eddie Taylor, and then 2 out of the South Coast, being Heather Deutsch and Jonathan Aboud. And this was intentional to ensure that there was variation in geographic coverage. Next slide, please. So when we went to JTAC, as I mentioned, we said, here's the results from the scoring committee. Your task is to recommend a suite of projects to the board. You have 3 things you have to consider. You have to consider geographic equity. We don't want it all going south or all going north, or all ending up in one city or another. We have to have both planning and implementation projects included in our full application. And we have this amount of money, so let's allocate the full amount. So that was the 3 tasks of JTAC. And next slide, please. So, and they made a recommendation, and as I said, it's in your staff report. So through this, during the month of October, I think it was October 2nd through November 11th, I believe, was our call for projects. We received 24 applications requesting a total of $33 million. And this it just highlights the competitive nature of the program. For the planning projects, we received 4 applications. They're on the screen and also in your staff report. And next slide. On the implementation side, it's much more competitive. We received 20 applications. The top 5 are shown here. As we go on later, you'll see the full list of 20, but the thing was, if we're going by score, you'll quickly run out of money way before you get even to the top 5. So This is the top 5. Next slide, please. So here's the JTAC recommendation. It was 3 planning projects, 3 implementation projects. There was a discussion that occurred at JTAC related to if we should fully or partially fund more projects or fully fund a more limited set. And the JTAC went for fully funded, providing the full ask for the lesser amount of projects. So here you see 5 projects recommended fully funded and 1 being partially funded. And then below that, you could see the split between planning and implementation. Here, the result of this out of the JTAC's recommendation is 38% of planning projects, 62% for implementation projects. Guidelines recommend 30-70. However, the guidelines also say that it should be informed by the public process. And that was a direct question in our public outreach. And the result of the public outreach for on the planning side, I believe it was 37.56 or 65%. So the JTAC recommendation is nearly identical to what the public outreach found. However, it is higher than what the guidelines. And then with the JTAC recommendation, we had 56% of the funding going to projects in the North County, being 2 projects, one in the city of Lompoc and one in the city of Santa Maria. And then on the South Coast was 34% of the available funding, 3 projects, 2 in the city of Santa Barbara, 1 city, 1 housing authority, and then another one in the city of Goleta. And then there was also a project proposed by UCSB, Department of Geography, that is region-wide in nature, and it's 10% of the available funding. And I will note I think it's important to point out that it's in the box up on the upper right, that number 2 ranked project on the implementation side was Buellton Gardens. It's a housing project in the city of Buellton. It got skipped over, not because it's not a good project, but because of the geographic equity component. That if we take the number 1 project in the city of Santa Maria, as well as the city of Lompoc's planning project, you're already well over, or you're at 56% of the available funding already in the North County. Next slide. So this is the last slide, and then we're going to switch to the spreadsheet. So what I'm asking you to do, and I think what you're already prepared to do, is consider what has been done by the scoring committee, what has been done by JTAC, and we're going to work through some scenarios if you want to see some changes to the JTAC recommendation. And hopefully by the end of this, we have a list of approved projects by the board. That's all I have. So if you could switch to the spreadsheet. Yeah, is there any questions?
I have a question.
Director Hartman has been waiting patiently, and then we'll go to Director Nelson.
I have 3 questions. The first has to do with your first slide. If you could go back to that.
Sure.
So the 3 programs, my question is, in the MPO, if you're thinking, can you include tribal in the MPO, or is because they have a tribal set aside that anything referring to disadvantage, any points that would come from disadvantaged community tribes in an MPO would be discounted because it's served elsewhere?
The tribe is eligible within SBCAG's program as well. And I did talk with the tribe, and I think at the end of the day, it was the intent was for the tribe to apply for their project through the tribal.
Right. I'm thinking more in terms of disadvantaged communities served by a project.
Yeah, so the reservation is considered a SB 535 disadvantaged community. So that was included in our outreach. We met with Sam Cohen and asked him, so we have this requirement to engage with this community. What's the best way for us to do so? And so Sam pointed us to the San Ynez Chamber. And so we tabled an event at the San Ynez Chamber Mixer. And that was what Sam told us to do to engage.
Sure. Well, I guess I think the Refugio Trail system serves tribal community and the reservation. So I just didn't know if there were extra points associated with that. And I guess
there was within the scoring, if you can go to the objectives, or not the objectives, the table. Yep. So there was a question in the application, a benefit to disadvantaged populations, and that was there was the criteria were laid out, and that was part of the scoring process.
okay. The second question has to do with EV charging stations, and you cannot use this funding for things that are already mandated. I guess any new construction has to accommodate be EV charging ready. But I guess it could go for EV charging stations. Just wanted to be clear on that point.
I'm not the final arbiter, so I'm going to put in the application whatever comes out today. I would think if it's not a mandate already, like you said, you were potentially required to have the electrical infrastructure in place, but not the charging infrastructure. That yes, it's probably an eligible project.
And then my final question is, as you look at the three objectives, those are important. How do you think about transformational? I mean, for me, that's really gets my attention, because we want projects like the 3D printing, for example, that really establish something new that might deal with a lot of problems all over the place. So my question really is, how do we think about transformational as you write your grant proposal due at the end of December? How will you account for that? Think about that.
Yes, good question, Director Hartman. I'm going to make the best argument I can in the application, and I've always thought about it through this process that transformational is something that is bigger than the project itself, or has the potential to be bigger than the project itself. And I think the 3D printing is a very good example. You know, you're funding it's a small project by itself. It's going to result in something, a physical object that is not significant in changing anything in the region except for one family, but the potential is there. That by this is a demonstration or a proof of concept that it could result in bigger change in the future. Yeah, so you're setting potentially the funds will have a value to, kind of multiply on the back end in terms of what is ultimately resulted or what happens in 10 years or so.
Let me just ask, so I'm just trying to understand the scoring for transformational. It doesn't look that high in this.
Yeah, good point, Director Hartman. I will say that these were worked out with our state agency partners, and the state agencies were crystal clear that the three objectives must be the vast majority. They have that has to be the bulk of it. And then considering the other factors that we had included, you can only slice the pie so many ways or so many times. Yeah.
Mr. Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Becker, or thank you, Chair, Mr. Becker. So number two, affirmatively furthering fair housing. Can you define that a little bit further for us?
I can try.
Okay.
Affirmatively furthering fair housing is, I almost take it as kind of the step of moving beyond disadvantaged communities. It's so rather than focusing on disadvantaged community, I think the one program that comes to mind is the state's Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities program, where you give a lot of benefit to the score to if you're building something in a disadvantaged community. However, you're building more affordable housing, more low-income housing in something that's already disadvantaged. And affirmatively furthering fair housing tries to change it. It said, no, that if we're going to support building low-income housing, it should be in places where there's job opportunity, where there's services. And conversely, it could be to create the job opportunities and the services in those communities.
That's really helpful. And a couple questions I'm going to ask that I asked yesterday, just so the rest of the board that was not present can hear the conversation that we had at the North County Subregional. Right now, I think it's, what is it, 60? What's the percentage that we're allocating for planning projects?
Planning projects in the JTAC recommendation was 38%.
It was 38%. And then I asked about that, and that, what are the special technical determinations on what that percentage was. And as it sounds like that came out of a survey mostly. Yes. And you guys try to balance that out. Yet the state's application process said that the minimum should be 70%. So we kind of fell below that and through our survey process.
Yes. So that was you have two conflicting things. You have the state guidance that recommends at least 70% for implementation. And then they also tell you to incorporate the public process and as I have filled out the portion of the full application that I could do so far, that was one of the questions, like, how have you incorporated the public results into the planning and implementation blend? So right now it's almost spot on. And when we went to JTAC, the spreadsheet, whenever Dejong brings it back up, you'll see on the right, we had just the notes, target here between 30 and 37 or whatever. Yeah, just to keep an eye on that, to make sure that it falls in that range.
So the target's below 70, even though so the minimum is 70?
No, this was our target, trying to split the difference between what our public process did and what the recommendation and the guidelines were.
Right. And so I think there's an opportunity that we have as a board here today to discuss that, and maybe, I know that there's only 4 projects on the planning side, so we didn't have a lot of options there, but there's quite a few projects on the implementation side. And so that's something I'm going to be looking at as we kind of deliberate is, maybe we should be spending more on the implementation side and that getting, actually satisfying the state's requirement. I appreciate the public process and all the outreach that SBCAG did and our partners. But I do think, at the end of the day, it comes to the board and we need to discuss these things and make those decisions. And we're all representatives too of those same people that you went and tabled for. So it's not like that, we're just up here pulling it away from everybody else and implementing our will, but we're tasked with doing that. That's one piece of it. The other, I guess, question I had, let me see if I can, was if let's say we have our priorities and we pushed it to the state and say, hey, these are the 5, 6, 7 projects we want to move forward with. They can at that point either accept it, or what happens at the point if they say, no, you guys didn't do enough on planning projects, or you picked a project that we don't think qualifies. What's the recourse? Do we lose that money or
no?
Okay.
So I think what will end up happening is they'll kick our application back to us and say, hey, we can't support this one project or something, to figure out how to.
So we get a second bite at the apple.
Potentially.
Yeah. Okay.
But we're not going to lose the fund.
Yeah, I hope not either. And I think that should liberate us as a board, because we know that we can make some of these decisions, and then hopefully, the state accepts them. That if there's something that's a little bit maybe on the edge that we want to take a risk as a board, we do have another opportunity maybe in March to look at this if the state doesn't agree with our deliberations. Yeah. So
I'll make the best argument I can in that full application for every project.
Well, we have a lot of faith in you. All right, thank you. Those are my questions. I'm also interested in public comment.
I will go to Director Capps in just a second, but I want to make sure that anybody who's here going to give public comment about the item that really took up the most discussions yesterday at both North County Subregional and South County Subregional, i.e. the La Cumbre specific plan. The request was to the city to really help us understand why this would speed up the development of this housing, and to property owner / applicant why you don't think it will speed it up. And I think what this seems to center on is the question of heights, and whether that can go faster in a specific plan, or will go slower because it is allowable under current law. So I really hope that you will give us that information And to Director Capps.
Thank you, Chair Williams. Actually, that's the nature of my question. If you can go back to the table, please. Is the top criteria accelerating infill development? The focus of my question is on the verb, accelerating rather than establishing. So how much of that is an emphasis, if you can talk about that word choice?
So that word choice came straight from the guidelines. It's an objective of the plan, except accelerating infill development. It's not a word I chose. It came with the program. So, and honestly, to this point, I haven't put much thought into that particular word of it. I took it more as just projects that are helping facilitate infill development and not necessarily focusing on the accelerating part.
Okay, thank you.
Questions from the South County? Questions from those online? And we'll go to public comment. Yeah, let's do public comment here first.
Good morning. I'm Ann Hubbard. I'm the superintendent of Hope School District, and I have public comment regarding the La Cumbre Plaza specific plan. And the plan, I understand and appreciate a plan that's given to you, and you have to hurry and get it submitted in order to make that work. My concern is, as the school district superintendent, that the impact that this project, which is inevitable, we understand, the impact of this housing project within the Hope School District boundaries is going to have a great impact to our enrollment. We are a small school district, TK through 6th grade, with 3 schools and a current enrollment of 857 students. So when we look at this development at La Cumbre Plaza, which falls within the school district, and look at the number of 2,000 units, 1,400 units, 1,500 units, and not knowing which type of units they're going to be, clearly they'll be high density, but the impact to the school district is likely going to be great. And when I hear things like spur, which is the to spur development or accelerate, it brings me great pause. Anybody who does public works knows that the process of public works for adding buildings, improving buildings, expanding school sites is a very, very slow and arduous process. And so I just stand here before you concerned about anything that will accelerate this process, because the school district, not only Hope School District, also Santa Barbara Unified, but to a lesser extent because they're a larger district and have more capacity to absorb more students. But the impact is going to be great. It's going to be large. I need my time. I need time to prepare for these incoming students. I need to work with the city and with the developers on an appropriate pace, or in what type of housing will be there, so we can plan appropriately. Thank you very much.
I understand Director Rouse has a question. If it's a comment, we'll still do those. But if you have a question, Director Rouse, go ahead.
Can you hear me, Mr. Chair?
We sure can.
Okay, thank you. No, actually, I'm going back to comments, so I'll wait until you're done with the question portion, and then I'll have a comment.
Great. Okay, let's continue with public comment.
Excuse me, before you on, can I get the name of the woman who spoke in Santa Barbara? What was her name?
Ann Hubbard.
Thank you. Is there any more public comment from Santa Barbara in the Planning Commission hearing room? Doesn't look like it.
Yes.
So we have some public comment speakers for this item. The first is Mr. Matthew Taylor.
I presume this is the microphone I should be using.
Yes.
That is it. Chair Williams and members of the board, thank you all so much for your time and for hearing me on this matter. My name is Matthew Taylor. I live in the city of Santa Barbara. Our partnership owns 15 of the 31 acres that make up the La Cumbre Plaza Shopping Center. We'd like to again share our concerns about the city of Santa Barbara's application for a specific plan for these parcels. We absolutely support a funding of other important planning projects in Santa Barbara and do not like being in the position of not advocating for funding for our city. Respectfully, however, there are many reasons why a specific plan just doesn't make sense at La Cumbre Plaza. First, our property and others at the site are already zoned for housing that the specific plan hopes to facilitate. It's simply not needed. Since identifying the potential for a specific plan in 2009, the city has passed numerous plans and zoning policies to promote housing on the property. We're very appreciative of all the work that has been done over the last decade to get us where we are today. In fact, we have already submitted an SB 330 and state housing density bonus application to the city yesterday. And as such, any future specific plan won't apply to our property since the rules as they existed yesterday are now locked in. Also, the middle portion of the mall is subject to a lease with Macerich, a mall operator that runs through 2077 that has a residential prohibition. So a specific plan won't impact that part of the property either. The city estimates that the specific plan would take 2 years, but these funds are supposed to accelerate infill development that facilitates housing supply. A specific plan would actually delay infill development for 2 years, maybe more. And in closing, I just want to share that our project includes housing, affordable housing, transportation and circulation improvements, infrastructure and utility improvements, new multimodal connections, public open space, and setbacks and habitat restoration. We've always offered to work collaboratively with the city as partners to create a great vision for this property. And we're also very happy to work with all stakeholders on this project, including Ann Hubbard, who we just heard speak. Look forward to connecting. That commitment remains, but we will not be participating in this specific plan. Thank you. And can I ask you, or can I just ask if you have a future speaker from your team? The city explained yesterday in South County Subregional that they believe that because of the heights question, that you need a specific plan to proceed forward. What is your reaction to that? You know, I'd like to let a land use attorney and or a land use planner that is not just a dumb developer explain the nuances of why this works, but fundamentally we have applied with state density bonus, and in order to achieve what we are entitled to under state density bonus, we must go with height, and so that allows us a waiver.
Okay, thank you. That's a fully appropriate answer that we should hear from the experts. Please proceed.
Next speaker is Xuan Ying. Chan Ying. Sorry about that.
Community Development Director from the City of Santa Maria. Welcome.
Yes, thank you. Chair Williams, members of the board, I advocate my full support for the Santa Maria Revitalization Infrastructure Project. There was some discussion of the adjective transformative. This is a transformative project. We've had a specific plan in place for the last 15 years, and there hasn't been a lot of movement in downtown. So the city went out of its way to identify underutilized city parcels, about 4 acres worth, vacant parking lots for the most part. And, you know, there's a plan for over 600 housing units on 4 acres of underutilized parking lot. That's transformative. And so this funding would help with the infrastructure. There are aging sewer lines in downtown. This would certainly help with the proposed housing projects that we have. Some have been submitted, some are in concept, but we have a development partner that is ready to go. And so when we talk about impact, there's immediate impact, but there's also future impact. This changes the face of downtown Santa Maria. So it's not just the 600 units that are identified, but with new activity, new life in downtown, the future impacts are, they're not really measurable, because with a shift in momentum, who knows what the full impact will be over time. The project, it hits on all the objectives: infill, furthering fair housing, VMT. Again, I just emphasize that when we look for a project that hits all the boxes, checks all the boxes, this is it. This is classic infill. I hope the county can get behind it. This is great for the county as a whole with all the housing supply that we're adding, and not just on the outskirts of town. This is in the heart of Santa Maria, where jobs are at, where activities are at, where it's a destination, but it's also a place where people can live. So I, again, advocate my full support for this project.
Chair Williams, I have a couple questions for the speaker.
Yes,
Can I ask?
Mr. Nelson.
Yes, thank you, Chung, for being here. Where's the location? This is literally Main Street and Broadway?
Yes, Main and Broadway.
Right, so
yeah,
right there in the middle of town.
Right.
The other question is, what's the cost of the full project? Because you're asking here for about $2.5 million. What is the contribution that's coming from the city and development fees?
There are multiple components to this. There's a sewer upgrade, there's a bus rapid transit station, and there's a modification to a pedestrian bridge. In total, this could be $4 to $5 million. We were aware of the allocation, and so we asked for an amount that we thought was fair, but the total cost exceeds the 2.5.
So what you're telling me is that 2.5 will be leveraged into potentially $5 million of investments in the downtown area.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Please proceed with public comment.
Next, we have Dan Gullett.
Thank you, Chair Williams and directors. I'm Dan Gullett, interim city planner for City of Santa Barbara. I'm here with Eli Isaacson, who's the community development director for City of Santa Barbara, and we are representing the city's application for the La Cumbre Plaza specific plan. And some questions have come up on that, and I want to address those. This is a generational opportunity to create a new neighborhood in the city of Santa Barbara. We're looking at about 2,000 units on this property. It's a full quarter of our arena for the city of Santa Barbara. This is a really, really important opportunity, and the time is now to do it. We were looking out to 2030 to do a specific plan, but it's clear that some of these properties are ripe for a specific plan. I want to clear up some misconceptions about slowing down development and timing and what we're looking to do with development standards. We have, as Mr. Taylor said, we have zoning that allows for high density on this property right now, but we do have limiting development standards like the height. And as an example of that, parking lot in front of Macy's that's underneath street grade is where you have to measure height from. And our current height limit there is 45 feet. Our charter allows us to go up to 60. We're talking about doing that there and not measuring it from the bottom of the pit. So instead of having the equivalent of maybe a 30-foot building, we could go up to 60 feet there. It deserves conversation. There's also a limitation on overall floor area. You can have the equivalent of a 2-story building across a whole site. We want to free that up too. So we want to make development more economical, and we want to accelerate it for these properties. That's not to say anyone could come in with a project under the current rules. We don't want to stop that. So if the Taylors are ready to go, we would look to doing a specific plan around that property. The city doesn't need property owner support to do a specific plan. We certainly want it. We want to have a harmonious relationship with all our applicants and have a good public process. And to address the Hope School District concern, there would be a full review of public services, including school circulation in that area as we move through the specific plan. And I'm available for questions.
Do any board members have questions? I want to just especially give you a chance to have that, considering we put you on the spot yesterday. Other questions from directors? Director Capps.
Yes, I just wanted to thank you for explaining how, I would love to understand a bit better how the two processes could coexist. Can you elaborate, please?
Yes, thank you. Chair Williams, we haven't yet seen the application. Apparently it was submitted yesterday under state law. So what would happen if that is in is we would take that as a given and work with it. It may be that we're adjusting the development standards in such a way that the Taylors would want to use the new standards that we have. That's what we expect. That's what we are wanting to do.
So the kind of the nature of my question about acceleration, what timeframes are we talking about here? And maybe it's a question for Mr. Taylor too. I want to just get a sense, you know, what it relates to the school district planning. Are we talking, I'm just not aware of the current timeframes as they are, and whether this would in fact, as has been raised as a concern, slow things down. So if you could speak to actual timeframes.
Well, the Taylor submitted project will move through the process as required by state law and as defined by our internal review process timelines. So the specific plan wouldn't hold that up at all. And there is a long-term lease on the mall with Mace Ridge, so that could be decades in the making. But we would want to have the planning done and the zoning in place for when it's ready to be developed, if that lease gets bought out or something else. But the Taylor's property is just a portion, so we would be working around that, and it may affect the overall design of the specific plan.
And in terms of the specific plan, is the $1 million, is that the entirety of what the costs are? What's the proportion of this potential grant towards the overall costs?
We asked for 1.2. Our minimum was 1 million that we asked for. We may need to supplement it if we need additional public outreach or discussion, community involvement.
Thank you. That's it for now.
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Oh, I have some more questions. It sounds like the Taylors say they don't want to participate. You can move forward without their participation. But they've got a permit application that would fall under the state's purview. So if they don't participate and they have about half the property, and then the other, you would be making an assumption about that 2077 lease for a specific plan, right? So how much would you be planning for? What percentage of this property?
Chair Williams, it would be a better question for Mr. Taylor, because I haven't seen their proposal or what portion of the property they're using for that.
Then, I mean, but they own almost half, and then you've got the additional property. So my next question then is, is a specific plan the only way that you could plan for how this development would affect schools? I mean, it sounds like the Taylor process is starting, and there needs to be planning now whether or not the specific plan goes forward. So how will that occur?
We think it's the best way to plan for schools and other public services, like circulation, like driveway connections. Vehicular circulation is difficult up there, and it has been a problem we've been trying to address. We do think a specific plan is best for that, because it's looking at the property as a whole versus piecemeal projects coming in that may affect smaller portions of schools.
I understand that. But something is already in the process. Something else can't go forward unless you get a buyout. So I'm just trying to understand the utility of a specific plan. And my question wasn't, is it the best way for school planning? Are there other ways?
I apologize. Yeah, the CEQA process is also a way to address school impacts. So we would look at impacts to public services, including the need for new facilities and funding.
Thank you.
If there was a question from Director Lavinino, you're next, and otherwise Director Perotti. Mr. Lavinino.
Director Hartman asked my exact question. So.
Good. Director Perotti.
Thank you, Chair. I guess my question is more to Mr. Becker on process here. I will say, this came to our attention yesterday at our sub-regional planning about the applicant, the ownership group of La Cumbra not being supportive, and that concerns me. So I hesitate to possibly move forward with that application. What other choices do we have today? If my colleagues see a need not to move forward with that particular applicant, can we then make suggestions for other applications? So if you could just let me know how to move forward on that, if that should happen.
Director Perotti, following the public comment, we're going to bring up a spreadsheet that will enable us to make adjustments to what projects are being selected. But the spreadsheet has in your staff report is a list of all the projects. And then the spreadsheet itself has, each project in 2 words that we can build in different scenarios to ultimately arrive to allocate the full $5.3 million. But I think after public comment, the intent is to open up that spreadsheet and to make any changes that the board supports.
Okay, thank you so much.
Let's continue with public comment.
Chair Williams, we have one more up in Santa Maria Isaacson, but we have an attendee who's had her hand raised for the past probably 15 minutes. Do you want to?
Sure, if she wants to do public comment, that's fine.
Yeah, I sent her a chat, but she didn't respond. Jennifer, you can unmute your mic.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't see the chat. I'm Jennifer McGovern, and I am the president and CEO of the Housing Trust Fund of Santa Barbara County. And we just wanted to express our excitement and about being included as a recommended project for the 3D printed home, which will be the first prototype 3D printed home in the entire county, and it's going to be in the city of Goleta. And I think not only is this an opportunity to show proof of concept of robotics technology, which can be, we believe, a future game changer in accelerating construction of a variety of types of affordable housing. It's also a model of using infill model of using surplus religious group property, church properties, for creating additional affordable housing in our neighborhoods. And that housing gives the opportunity for low-income households to benefit from the schools there and the shopping and the transportation systems. So again, we just wanted to thank you and available to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're on.
Mr. Isaacson.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Williams, distinguished directors. My name is Eli Isaacson. I am the Community Development Director for the City of Santa Barbara. I'm here with my colleague, Dan Gullett, to voice my support for our application for the La Cumbra Plaza specific plan. I would like to echo all the comments Dan made while he was up here, and add that I think the focus on transformative projects as part of this evaluation process, the La Cumbra Plaza infill development site is probably the most transformative redevelopment opportunity in our city at this time. When I was being welcomed to the city and meeting with a number of our elected officials, La Cumbra Plaza was oftentimes the first thing we spoke about. The need for housing, the need to reimagine that site such that it becomes the newest and most vital neighborhood of our community was top of mind for almost everyone I spoke to. And I believe that this, as Dan mentioned, is the best way to achieve a cohesive, thoughtful, innovative complete neighborhood that serves all the needs of a diverse set of residents. I know that Mr. Taylor has submitted an application. As Dan mentioned, we have not seen it as staff at this point, but I believe it is a SB 330 application. As Dan mentioned, if the Taylors wish to continue with that process, we can accommodate that through our specific planning process for the remainder of the site. To your question, Director Hartman, I believe that the SB 330 application covers roughly 6 acres is what I've heard. Again, I haven't seen it myself. That would mean there'd be roughly 25, 24 additional acres of that site that would be needed to be planned for in a way that is cohesive, coherent, speaks to the other elements of the site, the other program on the site, again, in that spirit of creating a truly harmonious and vital neighborhood for La Cumbre Plaza. My fear would be that we would do a series of one-off projects at that site and be left with a community that does not read as a single community, but as a series of residential multifamily projects with some multi-use attached to it. So that's why we're advocating for this project. I think, as the Community Development Director for Santa Maria mentioned, I think this project too checks all the boxes. And I think it's an incredible opportunity, not just for the immediate community of La Cumbre Plaza and San Roque, but for the whole entire city of Santa Barbara and the region as well. So I appreciate your time today, and I'll be willing to take any questions.
You have any questions for Mr. Isaacson?
I do. Lavanino.
Proceed, Director Lavanino.
Thank you, Mr. Isaacson. My question is, so we weren't really aware of this funding until, it seems like it, just showed up. So question is, that's an extensive plan. You've got a development, looks like it's in process, an SB 330 project. Is the city of Santa Barbara going to move forward with a specific plan for that area, whether or not you get this particular stream of funding or not, if it's that critical?
Director Lavanino, Chair Williams, that's a difficult question to answer. At this point, it's a hypothetical. I will say that the need for a specific plan for this site has been memorialized in land use policy documents at the city for well over 10 years. So we will have to take a very hard look at whether or not we wish to proceed with a specific plan for the site. But I think regardless of whether or not we receive this funding, and of course, we hope that we do, we will need to take a very comprehensive look at that portion of our city, because it really is the last best chance to create a new neighborhood in our community.
Okay. And last question for me is, do you know what the last specific plan that the city of Santa Barbara did and what the time frame was to accomplish that?
Chair Williams, Director Lavanino, if you wouldn't mind, I may like to punt that question to my colleague Dan Gullett. I think he'd be better prepared to answer.
Chair Williams, my recollection is the last specific plan that the city approved was Los Portales, which is the 535 East Montecito project. It's one block of downtown with some affordable and workforce housing. That went through a different iteration, so it did take a few years to do it, but it changed designers and ownership, so it's hard to assign blame for the length of time that one took.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
If no one else has a question for Mr. Isaacson, I just have, one more. The question of whether to move forward seems to be whether it would be of value in the balance of La Cumbre Plaza, not the area under consideration in the application. What is the time frame, because of the leases and so forth, that you could envision a development process moving forward? So say we gave you the money for the specific plan. It took you, say, 2 years to do a specific plan. When would you expect a development proposal on the balance of the property?
Thank you, Chair Williams. That's an excellent question. It's unfortunately one that's very difficult to answer. And it's difficult to answer for a number of reasons. We would hope, and we've expressed this to the property owners, that we really want to work with them. And we see the specific plan as an opportunity to address all of the sort of development hurdles that Mr. Gullett described in a previous answer, whether it be about floor area ratios, overall height, datum from which that height is measured. We would like to handle that all at once. And we think the best way to do that is through a specific plan. And if we are able to achieve those objectives, we would hope that the conditions would change on the site such that we provide the certainty needed to spur infill development to happen more quickly. And I think part of the challenge on that site, as I understand it, is not only just the multiple ownerships and lease durations and other things that are complicating redevelopment of the site, but that sort of questions about what does the future of the site really look like. And I think through a specific plan, it's the best means for us as a city to communicate to current owners and future investors that we know what is to happen on the site. We can provide you the certainty you need to move forward, while also, and this is a very important part, providing you the flexibility you need to be able to change and adapt as market conditions change and adapt, and the needs of the community change and adapt over the full build out horizon for the site, which, due to some of the current financial structures there, may be 20 to 50 years. But we hope, and one of our motivations for doing this project is to provide the certainty that's required to spur that redevelopment more quickly. And so, while it's difficult to answer the question directly, that is what we intend to do through this effort.
So if I'm getting this right, while there is a lease that 14 years, is that the commercial lease length at the site, you're hoping that this would be part of sending a signal that could cause the ownership mix to move quicker than that, is essentially, am I getting that?
That is correct.
Okay. Any other public comment? Thank you, Mr. Isaacson.
Chair Williams, I see no more further requests for public comment.
Now it's to the board.
Chair Williams, I have a couple of questions for Mr. Becker.
Great. Mr. Lavigno.
Thank you. First question is, was the scoring committee aware of this current proposed application on the La Cumbre site when they met?
Director Lavigno, the scoring committee was only provided what was included in the application given by the city, and the proposed or the development application we just learned was submitted yesterday or this morning.
Yeah.
So no, the scoring committee just based their review off of the application.
Okay. And then my other question is, maybe I'm looking at the scoring wrong. Okay. But so I'm trying to figure out, maybe it was because the mix of what you wanted to get with planning and implementation, I couldn't really understand, because it looks like there's 13 implementation projects that are ranked higher.
Yes, Director Lavigno, we are required to have a blend of planning and implementation. That's one thing I could tell you for certain. If we send an application that's all planning or all implementation, it'll get kicked back to us.
Right.
So yes, we have to have both, and that's going to require taking some projects that have lower scores than others.
Okay, so in that case, if we are taking, so we can't just move it all. If we decided to redistribute that La Cumbre piece, are you recommending that it all go into planning, or could there be a mix of planning and implementation?
Director Lavanino, I think that it's at the board's discretion there, whatever is approved by the board. But I think at the end of the day, we do need some planning and some implementation. And I think whatever scenario the board would work through in terms of, there was one unfunded planning project or there was a bunch of other implementation projects.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
We need to have a blend.
Okay. Thank you.
Was that all your questions, Director Lavanino?
Got it. Thank you.
I should ask if any others have questions before comments. And now comments, please.
Chair Williams, I really love to hear comments from Mayor Rouse. If I know he had something for us, that would be helpful.
Mr. Rouse?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. It's kind of hard to tell with this thing. So
maybe speak into the mic real good.
Okay, thank you. So as you heard from our two staffers up there, this is in fact a very transformative project, probably one of the most significant ones on the list. A quarter of our arena numbers, which we have very high arena numbers, which is one big motivation for us wanting to apply for this financing to do the specific plan. The plan we're talking about now, and we're very happy the Taylors are the developers because they have a really good track record. But we're dealing with less than half of the whole site that we're going to be talking about, and it is a community for transformative project for decades and decades and decades to come. So very important that we get this done. And once again, it's been memorialized from 2009, again in 2011, and then finally in our housing element plan to do a specific plan for that area. Speed is of the essence, and we're all on the same team. We really want to get this going the most expeditiously as possible. And to that end, we're going to do, we've actually promised some pretty extraordinary things, including hiring or assigning a specific planner who's going to do nothing but this project and work with the developers, and we're ready to go as early as tomorrow. We did get the 3:30 in yesterday, which is their right to do, and certainly things can go in parallel with that. I don't know what that's going to mean in terms of the final height determinations and how that's all going to work. That's yet to be worked out. But this is a huge part of our Santa Barbara housing element going forward, and we can do these things in parallel. We are ready and willing to meet with the developers on whatever basis they need to go forward. We all have the same motivations. We all want to get to the finish line as quickly as we can. We want to do it right, and we want the entire parcel to be planned. Because once again, this is the 600 or 600 to 700 out of 2,000 potential units on that site. And even though with the leases and whatnot, it may take some years, but the other side of the coin is these years seem to slip by quickly when it comes to major planning projects. It's going to have huge neighborhood impacts. As Ms. Hubbard said, school district impacts. It's important to get this right. So I'm going to encourage the board to go ahead and approve this funding, because we have more than, as the Chair Williams pointed out, we have more than just this site to plan for. But we do want to work with the Taylors, and we are excited about what they have going forward, even though we haven't seen it yet, but we assume it's going to be a great project. So thank you for your time.
Comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you, Mayor Rouse. I heard it in your commitment, but I just want you to spell it out. I just want to make sure that it is clear that a specific plan would not slow down the Taylor's development. I think that's the issue here.
That is, thank you, Ms. Capps. That seems to be the issue. Certainly, I've worked with. We spent all day yesterday with our city administrator as well as Mr. Isaacson and Mr. Gullett. We think if we didn't think this was the most expeditious way to go, we'd have no other reason to do it. We think this is the most expeditious way to go, and to work with this particular developer to get a good project done and get it done quickly. We need to satisfy our arena numbers, and we don't need to do it in 10 years from now. We need to do it as soon as we can.
Thank you.
Any comments from South County? Comments from online?
Well,
I'll weigh in. This is, as has been enunciated, probably the most important question and site for tackling the jobs housing imbalance, and for ensuring that another generation of Santa Barbarans might be able to survive and live in the community. So I for the same reasons that have been enunciated by both sides, this deserves a lot of attention. The reasons why I am still very shaky on approving this have nothing to do with its importance. I can't, I guess it's been a place where Councilmember White and my previous time as a council member, we dreamed of this moment. And it is great to see that the moment is here. We probably should have envisioned that there would be more than one scenario of how to get there. I think that it is hard for me to envision a specific plan increasing the speed of that infill development for a couple reasons. I appreciate the intention of staff in hoping to send the signal to the Macerich group to try to develop the balance of the parcel. But the best signal to the Macerich group to develop the balance of the parcel would be to process as speedily as possible the application that you now will have. I have spent many months, years of my life in city of Santa Barbara planning processes that went nowhere. And they are all about the idealism and hope of bringing people together. And that's not where they end up. What they unfortunately end up is all too often a impediment to progress. And it is especially concerning in the age that we're in, that essentially the same people that you would hire to do additional planning efforts are the same people that you need to hire to process applications. We are having the difficulty at the county, so I don't want to preach from a perspective of feeling like we're doing everything right. We're not. We need to do better ourselves. But I think I just respectfully disagree that staffing additional planning processes will speed things up compared to planning processing of applications, especially when the city is tolerating design review boards run amok by the city's own rules and by law. Their design review boards are not supposed to be land use planning organs. They're not supposed to be dictating the number of units that a project can do. And yet they are doing that. It is a horrifying thing to watch as the electorate in my district, in the city of Santa Barbara, which I've worked in decades so long. The public really understands that their survival, economic survival, depends on housing availability. And there's no jurisdiction that works in such a special relationship with the county. And so it is very hard for me to say these things. And I just don't see how this is going to help. Director Nelson.
Yes, thank you, Chair Williams. A couple things I'm looking at here. the La Cumbre site aside, right there in the board letter, it says that the REAP 2.0 guidelines encourage a minimum of 70% for implementation. You know, what's been proposed by the JTAC and the public process is less than that. Just as my general philosophy on what we do up here, I want to see projects get done. I'm a get things done type of guy. And we're really looking at moving down the planning list down to our third project, which is the most controversial one, versus reallocating that money, you know, into the implementation side and do things that are leveraging additional dollars to get things done and are also transformative on a lot of different levels in a lot of different communities. At the end of the day, the 12 of us that are on this commission or on this this board aren't going to decide whether a specific plan is done in Santa Barbara. That's going to be done by the Santa Barbara City Council and Santa Barbara City Council staff. And the question is whether we're going to fund it or not. For me, if all of this money was just for planning, I wouldn't necessarily have a problem with that. But I do think we have a choice that we're trying to weigh out here. And I don't want to judge or to be, you know, I don't think that they're deferring their authority to us. They're asking us for help. And I just think as we weigh these things through, I think that there's a better case for us to be spending more money on implementation and not get into the mud that's here. You know, I don't think I've ever seen a planning document expedite projects. I mean, maybe some programmatic EIRs every once in a while, but you know, I know in the community planning, at least in Orchid, that's been a battle for us to move forward with development. It hasn't been the asset that it's always envisioned to do, and it does typically slow things down. And if you have somebody that's moving, you know, at a like the Taylors who moving forward with the speed that they are as somebody that's trying to meet the current market and the current need, and then we go through this planning process, the two are going to be linked together. There's no way to not do that. And planning processes, by their very nature, are slow, and that's going to pull it down. It's going to be an anchor. And so, you know, but I'm not a city council member, so I'm not the one that's going to decide whether that moves forward for the city of Santa Barbara. My preference today is to look at taking those dollars that we originally had, or the JTAC had recommended for the La Cumbre Plaza, and look at reallocating it somewhere else in the plan. I know something that was mentioned in the North County Subregional yesterday was that the San Jose Creek and Goleta, it's a recreational class 1 bike path option there that is really going to leverage the money that we do to potentially $5 million of investment. Their public investment, you know, these things aren't going to get done by developers. These are things that are going to eventually take public dollars to get through. That's a project I'm really excited about, just to put that out there for some of my colleagues that might be looking at things. The other item out there that kind of still messes the geographic equity, but I would make the argument, Cuyama is not really north or south or middle, it's east. And it's something that we obviously don't often touch. And if we're really going to be building electric vehicle, you know, infrastructure throughout our county, that should be something that's looked at, even at the minimum level, to really incentivize that. We don't want to have, if we're going to be moving towards electrical vehicles, which I can always debate what the wisdom is in that, but we are definitely moving as a state and as a county in that direction. You know, we want to make sure that we get rid of these electric vehicle deserts, and Cuyama is definitely one of those. And so that's where I'm at right now. I'm just one director, but those are some directions I like to potentially see this go.
I'm going to go to Director Lavanino and then Director Peretti.
Well, great minds think alike, apparently, because those are the two projects that I actually identified. I think Cuyama's a no-brainer. It's just not going to get done without something like this being implemented. So I was much more interested in implementation projects than planning projects, and I'll keep it really short that I would like to move forward with also those two projects. I mean, there's a million ways we could split this up, but those two are very worthy projects, and they would have my support.
Director Peretti?
Thank you, Chair. Well, thank you for this conversation. Of course, I'm very much in support of the San Jose Creek Bike Path project. It's a $28 million project. We asked for $5 million, but the request was for $1 million, possibly from, and we at the city will make sure if we're granted $1 million, that we would find grant money for the other 5 or put in, do our matching dollars. But I do want to say that I think the San Jose Creek multipurpose path, it does fit the criteria. It reduces vehicle miles traveled. It definitely benefits the disadvantaged population of Old Town. It's a transformative activity, and it's an implementation project. So, I'm very much in support, and it has nothing to do with not supporting housing. I just see this as being problematic, the La Cumbre project, with, the new information that we just received. But thank you for that.
Director Hartman.
Just a quick question for Mr. Becker, and then I'll say my piece. The disadvantaged communities, could you review those for me one more time?
Yeah, according to SB 535, in our region, there are 3, one being the city of Guadalupe, the second being the reservation in San Ynez, and the third, actually, while we were in this process, the state updated the Cal Enviro screen, the tool that interprets SB 535. And when we first got into it, it was Isla Vista, and that went away, but Old Town Goleta came in. So it was Old Town Goleta, reservation, city of Guadalupe.
Thank you. So there's no question that La Cumbre Plaza is a transformative project. The question is a specific plan the right tool, the best tool to get housing? And we're in a crisis mode right now. We want to design things well, but we employers, the county governments across this county, the state, we can't hire, we can't keep people. We've got lots of empty rosters because the housing is too much. So we really need to address this as an emergency. We don't have the leisure that we might like to have. So again, I'm not sure the specific plan is the right tool, but La Cumbre is a transformative project. The second thing is implementation projects. I too favor doing more with implementation. I determined that Mr. Becker, you're a little shy of going against the public process, but I think if you look at all the applications that we have, that's another measure of public and need. And so I think when you write your grant proposal, you might say we had this much coming forward in implementation and only this much in planning, and use that as an argument for why we have focused the way we have. I too support Kiama. I think that in my mind, I don't know if it qualifies in year 3 as disadvantaged, but it's clearly isolated, rural, and low income, and so I'm very much supportive of allocating some money there. And I think Goleta is obvious. I mean, it is a disadvantaged community in Old Town, and I think that would be a transformative project. So I'm in a line with the other directors who've spoken.
I would suggest that we bring up the spreadsheet, and we could. So what I'm hearing to this point is to take away the specific plan and to split between the Kiama project, which is nearly $600,000. And the city of Goleta's project for the San Jose Creek. The downside, the one thing just before even looking at the spreadsheet is seeing that the city of Goleta asked for a minimum of $1 million, and if you fully fund the Kiama project, you don't have $1 million.
Yeah, but the Kiama project's minimum is $275.
Yeah, so you could do and you're still not going to get to $1 million because right now the value that you're looking to replace is the $1,010,000.
But Chair Williams, what I heard is from the Mayor Perotti that the city would find ways to bridge that gap
and take anything.
So I think Mayor Perotti said that in her comments, and maybe she needs to reaffirm that. But I think that they would be happy with the 700,000 plus if that was available.
And Ms. Becker, I thank you for bringing this up, but I don't want to cut off the mayor. And Madam Mayor, please proceed, and then we'll go to Director Capps.
Thank you. Can you, Mr. Becker, can you put up that first slide with the criteria? Okay. I'm really excited about the score that Santa Maria got was 90.04. And I want to thank our Director Ng and Community Development. When I look at what we are trying to do downtown, and you see the accelerating infill development, I'm probably the one person on the council that has a hard time ever voting for infill, because infill never seems to fit. It's sort of like a second thought or a third thought. But downtown, we've been trying to work on for 15 years. We have sewer lines downtown that are probably like 1905 lines. And so this is definitely going to allow us to move forward. Affirmatively furthering fair housing. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to do housing. We're sitting like right on the precipices of trying to get something done downtown and not having the resources to do it, and reducing of vehicle miles traveled. So what we want to do downtown is put housing. We have services and certainly work opportunities, and that's also what we want downtown. And as I mentioned, the aging sewer lines, and with all of this project, and we're also going to do something with the landscaping on Church Street and really enhance the whole area. This is what's in the plan. And now with our general plan update moving, it's such a crucial time to be able to do all this. There are people who've come into Santa Maria and developers who cannot continue with their development because of the aging sewer lines, because of the aging water lines. I don't believe in astrology, but this is like all the stars lining up for us. And it's so vitally important. We want to build in Santa Maria. We want to build housing. We're going to probably be way ahead of our arena. I'm not even driven by arena numbers. That doesn't even drive me. We have a population that we have too many families living in one house. That is not acceptable. And so to be able to do this, to me, is really, really exciting. It's something we need, and it's something we want. And I know there are some communities that don't have room to build, and that's fine, but here in Santa Maria, it's what we want to do. And we have a median age of 29. We have a lot of young families. We're going to be opening up a new park, our 29th park, or 30th. But anyways, one or the other. And so and it'll be right downtown. It'll be just right around the corner. So this is really exciting and important. I was going to ask the board if they didn't know what to do with that 1 million. They could always just give it to me. I can find places to use it. But I do know that I do.
Nice try.
So that's if you want to be generous. But I do know when I go through Cuyama, it doesn't change much, and they really needs the help of the county. We can't forget them. I just think it's definitely going to be transformative. So it's not like anything we have to get out and plan for. We're ready to jump on it. And so just don't take anything away from us. Thank you.
Director Capps.
Thank you. I do appreciate the focus on La Cumbre and how transformative, and to actually dig in a bit more and to hear about. I lament that there seems to be a choice between expediency and comprehensive planning. I guess that's the reality of the world that you all have lived in longer than I have, but I wish that there could be both. And I do hear Mayor Rouse's commitment to having this not slow down the Taylor's development at all. I just have to add, I'm not too persuaded, with all due respect to Ms. Hubbard, about the schools needing more time. I can just speak from experience that enrollments are down, and Santa Barbara Unified would gladly absorb more students. So I hear my colleagues, and I respect that your experience with this, and it seems to me that as much as I feel the urgency of La Cumbre being, I wish we could flip a switch and that could be housing right now. Every time I go there, it's calling out for it. The cover of the Independent today is about rents in Santa Barbara specifically. One bedroom is $3,000. I mean, it's just crazy. And so but I'm hearing, as I learned, I didn't know exactly the way that this discussion would go, is that implementation is the priority, acceleration is the priority. And so I would have to, as much as I'm sticking up for more development, especially in District 2, it seems as though this isn't the best use of this kind of grant. As supportive as I am of the city and their efforts, and want to be as much of a champion of this happening as quickly as possible, and grateful to the Taylors for demonstrating how eager they are to get going. Thank you.
Director Julian, and then we'll go to Director Perotti.
Yes, I just, one of the rising stars west of Santa Maria is Guadalupe. And what we're seeing is a vast amount of individuals coming from Santa Maria for housing. And as we know, we have an hour, every hour there's a bus from Guadalupe to Santa Maria. And the housing is very important for Santa Maria and also for the Guadalupe. So of course, I really support that. And also the area of Coyama and also Goleta, I think that they're deserving of some support from us. So that's my thought.
Director Perotti, are you going to tell us that you guys can get it done, that extra $250,000?
Well, of course, we'd like the whole million, but I think we'd be willing to take what we could get, and every little bit helps get this project done. It will change so many lives in Old Town to get this done. It'll be able to get people across over to the other side without having to go to a route that's so incredibly dangerous for pedestrians and bicyclists. So I would love the full million, but I understand the need to split. So I'm sure we'd be fine with that.
Thank you so much. Any other comments before we do a motion? I will just add that, I really appreciate my colleagues' support for Cuyama, which is in my district. Cuyama, just in case you don't know, is a jobs center. It is a jobs housing imbalance. There are vastly more jobs in Cuyama than there is housing. And so the creation of this kind of housing, and of course, most of these jobs are in the ag sector. The creation of this kind of housing will directly affect the jobs housing imbalance. And of course, the ability for those residents to use electric cars would be a massive insulation from the depredations of inflation and high gas prices. And there, in this application is also included transit money too, because residents of Cuyama that work in Cuyama still need to shop in Santa Maria or in Taft, so which is not close by. So this is very helpful, and this funding would be good. It's also would bridge. Of course, I think we should make the requirement that these chargers be publicly available, because I don't know if other South County folks realize how many Kern County residents come to North County and to San Luis Obispo through this highway on their way to their weekend recreation. So it's a massive impediment to wider spread adoption of electric vehicles for there to be zero charging in Cuyama, except on the days when I bring my little 110 watt charger to leave at the library. I think it would be really important for the community and for addressing electrical connections. Of course, Old Town needs the love. and we should give it. It would have been cleaner if there was another City of Santa Barbara project, but we're already supporting a City of Santa Barbara project implementation project, and if we did this kind of thing again, and the city asked for money to knock down rents to slightly below market on a new project, I would be funding it in a heartbeat. That's the kind of implementation projects we probably should be doing both in our cities and counties, to make sure we can do some stuff that's slightly below market, to provide some relief to our folks on
Chair
rents.
Williams?
So can I get a motion?
Chair Williams?
We were going to bring up the spreadsheet.
Okay, bring up the spreadsheet.
So then you can know what you're making a motion for.
Anybody in there? Hello, Mr. Chair.
Oh, I think Mr. Rouse
Thank you.
has a comment.
Been there waving my
we
hand
can
for 5 minutes.
Just speak up just a little bit, Mr. Rouse.
Okay, will do. So I won't hide that I'm disappointed in the discussion. We're basically looking at an entire parcel worth potentially 2,000 units, and we're talking a parcel, just a small part of it, or a part of it, and we're basing it on anecdotes. The anecdotal thing is that we think it would be slower, and we can debate that all day long. There's a couple of other issues in there that could be happening right away. So I can tell the direction of the board right now, but I'm saying is this is a major part of the city of Santa Barbara's housing element, and the decision we make as we go forward with this project are going to be many, many, many decades. It's a 60-year-old facility as it is. We're looking at least that going forward with these new projects. So I'm a little disappointed that we're just buying into the delay discussion. I think we're have a sincere effort going forward to try to work with the developer and expedite this. So the board's going to do what it's going to do, but I won't be supporting that.
Is there a motion?
Let's bring it up.
You want to bring up the chart?
Yeah, make sure we know what your motion's for. So the way we put it, while you were talking was, we fully funded the Kiama project, which is number 13 on there on the implementation side. We took funding away from project 22, which was a specific plan, and the balance of funding goes to project 20, which is San Jose Creek, $425,466.
Yeah, that was my intention, to take that as much away from San Jose. So the project listed here, Perkins Place in Cuyama, I appreciate that you were ready to give me all the money, right? That's good. But the Cuyama project says that they can take, they can get it done for $275. So
give them $275.
Let's
change 13 to $275,000.
Yeah.
Okay, and for the record, the North County South Coast split is no longer accurate on there. It's the way it's set out is 61 North, 29 South, and 10% countywide.
Got it.
So just zero it out real quick, and then you see what your number is at the bottom. Zero out to 425. Just make it zero.
Just for the record, I did not bring my glasses. These are all blurs.
734, 933. 734, 933 in San Jose. Yeah, 734, 933. Okay.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
So the minimum so we have two partially funded projects in this proposal, one being the Kiama EV chargers and the other being San Jose Creek. $734,933 to San Jose Creek and $275,000 to the Housing Authority of Santa Barbara County for the EV chargers in Kiama.
Hey, is there anyone who wishes to make a motion concerning?
So moved.
Second.
So for clarification, you are moving the amounts that are pictured there, which is the same projects that were in the staff report minus the specific plan, but adding the San Jose multimodal path and the Perkins Place New Cuyama EV charging stations. that correct? Maker of the motion?
Chair, I have a question.
Yes.
Perotti, would you give me the figure for the San Jose Creek again? I can't see the chart from where I am.
Director Prodi, it's $734,933.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Chair Williams, Director Hartman also needs to adopt the resolution, approve the resolution as part of her motion.
So I would also include in the motion, including the resolution.
Great. And the seconder is good with that? Okay. Discussion of the motion. Seeing none, roll call, please.
Director Capps? Aye. Hartman?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Lebanino?
Aye.
Infante?
Aye.
Julian?
Aye.
Ping?
Dane.
Osborne?
Aye.
Patino?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
Perotti?
Aye.
Rouse? Director Rouse?
No?
Thank you. And Chair Williams?
Aye.
Motion passes 11-1-1.
Okay. 5B.
All right, for the sake of brevity, we'll try and make this quick.
Let me read this record. Thank you.
Trying to get too quick.
5B, Santa Barbara County Broadband Strategic Plan. After receiving a presentation on the draft final Santa Barbara County Broadband Strategic Plan, adopt by vote the Santa Barbara County Broadband Strategic Plan to guide broadband infrastructure improvements, broadband affordability programs, and digital literacy efforts to be undertaken by SBCAG and the region's local governments and community-based organizations, and direct staff to file a sequent notice of exemption with the county clerk.
All right, I can get started. So again, Mike Becker. We're here to seek adoption of the broadband strategic plan for the region. We have a brief presentation that Maria and Kelly is going to do most of it. I will do two things though before I turn it over to Maria. Number one, I want to thank everybody involved with this project. It was a whirlwind. It was outside of our series area of expertise. And it all came together due to participation of the advisory committee, of the ad hoc committee, of the board, of Margie and SBCAG staff and the project team. It was an amazing process to go through. And we got here. We got here before the end of the year on a very fast project that seeks to set up the region to capitalize on available funding to make real-world improvements for broadband and to benefit the public. The other thing I want to touch before I turn it over to Maria Kelly is the concern has always been what happens next. I'm a planner. That's in my title. I develop plans. What happens after the planning is done? And with broadband, who picks it up? That was really a question, but I think we cracked that nut and figured it out. And with Margie's leadership, we developed a partnership with the Santa Barbara County. So both of us submitted an application to the California Public Utilities Commission for funding to start implementing the plan. However, we did run into a hiccup where it turns out that MPOs are not eligible. Well, we knew that, but SBCAG wears multiple hats. But they couldn't see beyond the fact that one of those hats that we wear is an MPO. And that's unique to primarily the single county agencies such as SBCAG that wear many hats. You go to the big regions, the different hats are in different offices. And that means that, our peers elsewhere can apply, we can't. So the workaround is, number one, we're going to seek a legislative fix. That may take some time, but we want to get rolling before that. And so working with the Public Utilities Commission staff, we're going to work to incorporate both of the applications into a single application that will be submitted by the county. And we'll do a switcheroo whenever this happens. There'll be an item come to the Board of Supervisors for you to approve that at the end of January, and we'll submit that. And we at least have staff support. However, because it's above the minimum funding, it will require going to the full commission, so we expect to learn by about March, and that will enable SBCAG to start the process of turning a paper document into improvements in the real world. With that,
just a quick question. When it does go to the PUC, would it be valuable to have somebody from the county or SBCAG there to testify?
yes, and Director Hartman, we had planned in the past to at least be online, and I believe they're meeting online now. But yes, we will be following that and ensure that whatever is needed or whatever needs to happen will happen. Yes. So I don't want to waste any more time, so I'm going to turn it over to Maria Kelly. She's going to walk through the presentation.
Okay. Good morning. Good afternoon. Thank you again for your time. Next slide, please. I'll make this brief. Many of you have seen this multiple times. The presentation outline, overview, status, highlights, data, next steps, and then a time for questions if there's any. Next slide, please. This was our timeline. Here we are, hoping to complete all the presentations prior to the end of the year, but due to some different sorts of needs of boards, we'll be going to the Board of Supervisors at the end of January, and I'm still working with Buellton. They had a massive board turnover, and it made more sense to present once that new board was seated. So we will do 2 presentations in January. Next slide, please. So project highlights. We did some of this you've already seen before. When we were last before you, we have completed everything that we said we would complete, aligning with state and federal efforts. We took the stakeholders, which was very critical to this project. Stakeholder engagement was everything, and is very important to broadband planning. The map is complete. The data is there. All of that will be turned over to SBCAG early 2023. Next slide, please. As an example of some of the data, I've shared this with many of you before, we are continuing to promote and collect speed test data. We believe that as some of the CPUC maps are updated and the FCC maps are updated, we're still going to want to see where these areas of opportunities are, if nothing else, to help provide some feedback to the telecoms where they may need to be doing additional outreach in increasing, improving equipment to the end user and or looking for infrastructure needs. Next slide, please. So this is what we've been sharing with all of this. This is the format that we've been sharing with all the cities, just using it as an example. This is what we'll be sharing with the Board of Supervisors next month. Looking, again, using the broadband for all lens, looking at how we organize, looking at access, affordability, adoption, and then redundancy and resiliency. And when you look through the plan, you are going to see some conversations around smart city planning. That is the future, and this infrastructure, as we look at it, is really important for futuristic smart city planning. You'll see, importantly, in that sort of that last final box, it really is up to the elected officials to continue to lead and give guidance, support the identification of policies and priorities. So we look forward to, SBCAG, I'm sure, looks forward to continuing to work with you all on that. Next slide, please. So regional actions, again, shared this with you previously, and it doesn't show up super well, but in the green is where we are in process. The yellow, the TBD, is sort of where the work is ongoing, and really looking to SBCAG to continue to help coordinate these regional planning efforts. It's been an absolute pleasure working with the SBCAG team. It's been a partnership that I've thoroughly enjoyed, evolving hiccups along the way, but overall, absolutely a wonderful process, and really appreciated everyone's time and commitment to this project. So you can see the actions primarily under the last mile. We're going to hear more about the middle mile and last mile over the next couple of years. Really looking at those partnership opportunities with telecom is going to be significant for each of your local jurisdictions as well. Next slide, please. So what are some of the recommendations and next steps, as Mike Becker shared, hopefully with the adoption of this plan? Review and adopt strategy recommendations and look towards implementation. As he said, the project is ready for implementation at the local and regional level, and working with SBCAG to continue to identify the staff that's going to continue to participate in those important middle mile conversations that are happening right now. That is going to be ongoing, and we are hopeful that SBCAG can continue to still represent the county regionally in those conversations. I won't go through each of these, but just some specific areas of opportunities. We look at 2023, there's continued planning, but there's also significant opportunities for action. And as we meet with the project team, as we wrap up in early next year, I'm sure that we'll continue to hone in on what those are. And I believe, again, I think that's the last slide. Next slide, please. I'm ready for questions. Or no questions.
Board member questions? I know that Director Hartman's got one.
Mine is really a comment, and I was a proponent of SBCAG being a center so that we could reach and work with all the cities and the county in collaboration. And this has turned out better than I ever could have dreamed. I mean, I think this is just an extraordinary accomplishment. I mentioned that I was at the CSAC conference and a CPUC staff member came up to me and said, Santa Barbara County is way ahead of everybody else I know of in terms of counties in Santa Barbara with this regional approach. So I think we can pat ourselves on the head that this has been really extraordinary. I'm especially interested in the digital equity piece of it. I know the Santa Barbara Foundation is working on that, but I think it's really important that we try to braid these two together. I think it's really an economic development opportunity and using promoters and others to reach in as Equalitech gave us an example. I just think there's enormous potential there. So I want to keep that as part of our partnership. And I love your figure one, which is the hub and spoke. That is the model to bring everybody together. So I'm just more excited than I can articulate.
And I'd like to thank you as well for your participation in our outreach and all of the supervisors who participated in the outreach. It was a really critical component of the project.
And I just want to thank Director Hartman for her great leadership on this, Director Nelson for his great leadership, and staff. A lot of directors in particular would probably push back at this and go, you know what? Building the biggest freeway project ever in our history, that's and all the other things we do, that's probably enough, but you all staff had a real can-do attitude about embracing an additional large piece of work. And I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Any other comments? We need a motion.
I'll make it, but what is it exactly?
Move staff recommendation for item 5B.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Oh, do roll call vote.
Roll call, please.
Director Capps?
Aye.
Hartman?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Lavanino?
Aye.
Infante?
Aye.
Julian?
Aye.
King?
Aye.
Osborne?
Aye.
Patino?
Aye.
Karodi?
Aye.
Clark? Is he gone? Director Clark? I don't see it. Okay. Rouse?
Aye.
And Chair Williams?
Aye.
Motion passes 12-0.
Item 5C.
Item 5C is election of officers for 2023. Elect board chair and vice chair for 2023.
Director Hartman, you were fast on the trigger there.
I believe we alternate city and county, and so I believe Mayor Osborne is ready to come into the chair, and I believe it's Director Nelson. Isn't it D4's turn to come into the vice chair?
It's actually going to be Supervisor Lavanio as we try to go north-south there. I believe that Supervisor Lavanio was going to step up.
Okay. So I would nominate Director Osborne and Lavanino.
I'll second that.
There is a nomination and a second. Is there any alternative nominations? Well, I just want to tell you that Director Osborne has been very consistent in her work as vice chair. She has been there constantly all this year. And so she's going to be a great chair and look forward to continuing to work with you in your leadership. We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? No public comment? Then roll call, please.
Director Caps,
Aye.
Hartman,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Levanino,
Aye.
Infante,
Aye.
Julian,
Aye.
King,
Aye.
Osborne,
Aye.
Patino,
Aye.
Aye.
Clark, absent, Rouse, Rouse. You said aye. And Chair Williams.
Aye.
Motion passes 11-0.
And then we've got another special event, 5D.
Item 5D, resolution of appreciation for Tim Gubbins. Approve and present a resolution of appreciation to Tim Gubbins, Caltrans District 5 Director, for his contributions to improving transportation across Santa Barbara County.
Mr. Chairperson, members of the board, we had to save the best for last because we had to get our money's worth out of Tim Gubbins and make him sit through the longest meeting of SBCAG ever. I think the 2 hour for one item, I think is your record. I don't think we've ever had that. But I want to thank Tim Gubbins for his service to SBCAG. And if you don't mind, if I can read the resolution just so we can get that into the record, because he has had a very impressive career.
He deserves more than that.
Yes.
So go for it.
Yes. Tim Gubbins, Director of District 5, California Department of Transportation. Whereas Tim Gubbins has proudly served the traveling public and residents of California's Central Coast as a member of the California Department of Transportation. And whereas Tim Gubbins has led Caltrans District 5 since 2012 as District Director and as Deputy District Director for Program Project Management beforehand, and all the other roles developing and sustaining productive partnerships with local and regional agencies for planning, programming, and development of transportation improvements, emergency response efforts, and many other activities. And whereas countless individuals have benefited from Tim Gubbins' work as a regional leader to improve infrastructure on the Central Coast and developing a culture of partnership, and we know partnership, don't we? Partnership with regional agencies to be innovative in completing transportation facilities to improve mobility and safety, and to lead emergency response efforts to maintain critical community connections, among other aspects of his work. And whereas Tim Gubbins has been instrumental in collaborating in many critical priority projects with Santa Barbara County Association of Governments and local partners in Santa Barbara County, including the Santa Barbara Crosstown Freeway Project. Gosh, we're going back, aren't we here? Okay, way before my time. The Santa Barbara one, you've been around for a long time.
I was a little kid, man.
Santa Barbara 101 Milpas to Hot Springs project, the Linden Casitas Pass project, the Santa Barbara Highway 101 multimodal corridor project, the Highway 101 Santa Maria River Bridge project, Highway 101 Union Valley Parkway project. I need a breath. Highway 154 operational improvements, Milpas Roundabout and Highway 101 Stork Road interchange, and the Highway 246 passing lanes, among many others, as well as ensuring proactive role for SBCAG in state and district-wide planning and project delivery efforts. Whereas Tim Gubbins has been an ally and a partner of SBCAG, and he's worked selflessly for the betterment of the Santa Barbara County region. Now, I hope if you vote for this resolution that's before you, that the members of the Santa Barbara County Association of Government Board of Directors express their individual and collective appreciation to Tim Gubbins for his nearly 35 years of service to the California Department of Transportation, and wish him well in all his future endeavors. And hopefully his wife will appreciate having him home more and available for travel and whatnot. So with a heavy heart, I'm really sad. Tim Gubbins personally has been a team member. We've hit the ground running when I first started here. He had an environmental document that was being challenged in every shape, way, and possible way that it could be challenged. And he got it over the finish line, so we were eligible to apply for the first cycle of SB1. And if he and his team weren't able to do that, we wouldn't be experiencing the accomplishments that we have as an agency.
So for one person to have so much impact on Santa Barbara County, I think he's it. And I think we all need to give him a round of applause. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Tim. Thank you so much. So with that, I'll pass it back to the chair.
And I, of course, want to give Tim the floor if he wants to say something. And we would probably say a lot more, but I just want to say that for any folks that don't know, he came through with us very big. He and his team with the roundabout funding that was not part of our funding applications. They just found the money. That was really, really important for the continuity of the project and will help probably save some lives, really, of people that would otherwise be queuing on the freeway during the final stage of construction. So you've been there. Thank you.
All right. Well, can we jump into some comments before?
Yeah. Let's go, Tim. And then
yeah, you get the last word. That's Chair Williams. Thank you. So my very first SBCAG meeting 10 years ago as a staff member was the day that Tim Gubbins was announced as the new director. So it's been an honor to be here for the last 10 years, to be to track with your last 10 years of your career. Coming into this, I thought Caltrans was this stoic, impersonal, detached organization, and that's the impression a lot of people out there in the government or in the public have about Caltrans. And I really want to thank Tim for being an ambassador to bridging that gap for me and my constituents. Tim has been personable. He's been responsive. I really appreciate you letting me pester you, as I felt like a little brother sometimes. But having that relationship with Tim is someone who really knew our district, who worked hard for our district, and it didn't matter whether you were, he never ignored any elected official or any staff member for them. He was always on top of things, getting us answers and solutions. And that's the type of governance that I think people expect and want. And I think you've done a great job at showing me that that's possible, even in the biggest of organizations in the state of California. So thank you, Tim, for your service. You will be missed, but I think you've set up a good legacy for any future replacement for you of what should be expected in District 5.
Well, I just wanted to add that I think of so many issues that are important to me, Highway 154 safety and kind of a new process, and your willingness to help work through that. Never forget the debris flow and what you did and all your staff and how you mobilized to, I mean, it was unimaginable what you had to dig out there. And the Los Alamos grant we finally got. It'll be transformative. But the thing that really strikes me, and I think you're hearing a theme of it, is you've changed the culture of a very big, difficult agency to be much more responsive, not only to partners in other government entities, but to the public. And that's not easy, but it's happened under your watch, and I think we get better projects for that. So thank you so much.
Director Patino.
Yes, thank you. I want to thank you personally, Tim, because anytime I've called you, you've been very responsive. So that is you and that's your personality. So let's just hope whoever takes over is the same. But I just want to thank you so much because we tend to call you only, just like our constituents call us only when they have problems or have something negative. But I want to personally thank you from the city of Santa Maria.
Any directors online have a comment?
Yeah, this is Lavanino. I want to echo what Alice said. I was out once with Scott McGulpin, Public Works Director, at a golf course, and we were laughing about how no one ever calls up and says, "Hey, thanks, this road looks great." And the guy in the foursome ahead of us heard us, and on the next hole, he came over and said, "Hey, by the way, thanks for this particular road." So it doesn't happen very often. So Tim, today's your day. We're all saying no one's adding another project or something for you to look at. We're all just saying thank you. So thanks a lot.
Any other directors online or in South County? Okay. Then Tim, this is your hour.
It probably shouldn't take much more than that, so thanks.
No, in the interest of time, I won't. As Margie was reading some of those projects, I was having fond memories of all of them. And I hate to say, in my it's almost exactly 35 years with the department, it's all been here on the Central Coast. And actually, the first project that I remember that has partnership was when we were rehabilitating 246 through Salvang. It started in February of 1988, for those of you who might have been alive or working it then. But one of the things we did, in addition to the pavement and drainage and all the usual stuff, we were putting sidewalk by the park. And working with the city, we actually depressed the sidewalk a bit, leaving a bit there. And the city came in and was able to put red brick because they thought that might be a good idea. So any of you who have been in Solvang since '88 may have noticed that now red brick sidewalks are pretty much everywhere. And so that, that working the crosstown freeway down in living in Goleta for a few years and all that, it's just, and everything we've done. Back in 91, when I left the crosstown freeway, we were expecting in a year or two to take the rest of the freeway all the way down to the county line. So I'm so happy to see the progress that we're making now. But it's a great career. It's a great place to be. I'm still going to stay in the area. So thank you all for your support and kind words.
I'm not sure when to give it to him, but he do have a frame.
Let's take a picture real quick.
So we have framed the resolution for him so he can put that up in his office, and then some photos of the last event that we had with Tim that we celebrated which one was this? 4A opening. Yes. Okay. So can somebody hold one and somebody hold the other, and I'll just be a bandit.
Right, I'm gonna take a couple to see 1, 2, 3, and then another one, 1, 2, 3, and another horizontal, and oh yeah, take off.
Awesome, thank you so much. Great, thank you. Okay, so now you have to adopt the resolution.
Is there a motion on the resolution?
So move.
Yeah, and I'll second.
Is there discussion on the resolution? Seeing no discussion on the resolution, roll call, please.
Director Capps.
Aye.
Hartman.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Lavanino.
Aye.
Infante.
Aye.
Julian.
Aye.
King.
Aye.
Osborne.
Aye.
Patino.
Aye.
Perotti.
Aye.
Clark. Rouse.
Aye.
Williams. And Chair Williams.
Aye.
Motion passes 12-0.
So I will just discourage 1-minute reports because I do think the first APCD item for committee starts in 8 minutes. So is there anybody who has some burning need to do a 1-minute report? Thank you so much. Executive Director's Report.
Very, very quickly. Welcome to Directors Infante, King, and Capps. Welcome to SBCAG. This was a great meeting for you to get your feet wet and all the great discussions that we have. And the REAP discussion was amazing. So thank you all, board members, for the patience and due diligence for getting through that. I know that was challenging. I do want to recognize Lauren Bianchi Clement. Last night she was recognized as the Woman of the Year, or the Member of the Year, for the Association of Women in Communications, the Santa Barbara chapter. So congratulations to Lauren. And then also yesterday, the Planning Commission of the County of Santa Barbara approved the coastal development permit for the Highway 101 Montecito segment. This is a critical milestone to start the construction of the Montecito segment by summer of 2023. This also represents the coastal permit approval being achieved 4 out of the 5 segments. So we're almost there of getting the full approval. And I will end with that with happy holidays to everyone. Thank you very much.
I guess you still get one more at bat. Caltrans Director's Report. Thank you, Chair Williams. And I will be very brief and give one item. And it's a I just wanted to, since it's such a non-traditional. Through the Clean California program, we've had a free recycling and cleanup event held out in New Cuyama. And in addition to to the usual bring your stuff here. We also asked people if they needed help, and we went to 19 different addresses to pick up on December 1st to the 3rd. But when we had the dumpsters, we had 4 large 40 cubic yard dumpsters out there. They were all full. So it was over 160 yards worth of recycling and cleanup, as well as what we brought. It was a great thing. We did it in partnership with Blue Sky, and that's the type of thing that I hope to see more of in the future. Thank you.
Thank you for helping us clean up Kuyama. Director Julian, did you want to report on your Cal Vans meeting?
30 seconds. There's 423 vans in California, which ag, 98 are non-ag. Santa Barbara County has 44. The County of Kings is now leaving a partnership with Cal Vans, and it looks like this group out of Monterey is going to handle the administration of that. And that's it.
Thank you. That concludes all of our business today. We will adjourn for January.